This is absolutely Essendon, the Bombers YouTube fan channel that, like our team, starts like a Ferrari, but by the end is like a wheelie bin going up a hill. But hey, we won, so let's celebrate. It's the Sydney game review. The Bombers victorious by 8 points against last year's grand finalist. Boy, what a game. The defibrillator was required again. There is so much to unpack. Let's just get stuck right in. So there you have it. We've won 5 out of the last 6, and we were the underdogs in the game against the Swans. They were very clear favourites. I mean, we were given some chance, but most of the pundits were thinking, yeah, this will just notch this down for a Sydney victory. And I got to admit, I was thinking that as well, because they're just a very disciplined side. Yes, they're missing players, so are we. But they always bring the pressure, highly disciplined, but maybe not so much.
No, they weren't so disciplined in that first half, were they? And we jumped them. And look, let's not. I know what the topic of this game's going to be about. We all know we're going to get to it. What happened in the second half? But let's just have a look at a couple of basic facts here. They only had 4 players under 23 in that game.
Okay, I didn't realise that.
Well, now you do.
That's a good stat.
Now you do. And for all the the naysayers out there, we had 15 players who'd played less than 100 games out of 23.
Nice stat.
So can we just all calm down, okay? Yes, they came back in the second half. They always were going to. This is a very, very good team. Okay, people are saying, well, they may not be so great this year. Watch the game they played last week against GWS. GWS, who were a premiership favourite at the beginning of the season.
They were. Very good point. Another good point.
So
You've come out of the blocks firing.
I'm more prepared than the mushroom murderer's defence lawyer for this particular game.
Do you think she did it?
She will walk. She will walk. What's wrong? Hey, you're tossing a couple of bad mushies. It happens. Or I've had some bad mushies in my time too.
Why wouldn't she let them look in the pantry, do you think?
Oh, well, do you let people look in your pantry? Do you?
Have at it. What are you going to spot the oregano?
So let's just go back to the beginning of the game, right. And we went into that match missing a hell of a lot of good players. We're missing our first line ruck, Brian and Draper. We lost 3 players last week, very important players, well, pretty important players. Certainly Ridley, to be fair.
Ridley, a definite. The others maybe provided opportunities.
We had Caldwell coming back from an extended injury break. He was always going to be rusty.
We did.
And on. So there's a lot to like about what happened out there, particularly in that first half. And I wondered whether, there were some similarities with the North Melbourne game, right?
Yes, there were. And again, we looked well structured. We looked very well organised. We transitioned the ball, I think, on 3 occasions from defence and scored. That's rare for us. Come on.
You almost sound like Norm Smith the way you're talking. The master coach.
Oh, shut up. Anyway, so
Magnet
we were looking good. They weren't looking amazing, you've got to say. And I think their tackle number at halftime was way down. I think they had 11 players who hadn't laid a single tackle at halftime.
Right.
So that's a quite damning stat. So, but you got to take advantage of that. Whereas in the past, often, many times, in fact, we don't do that. So to be up by 39 points at halftime. It was the result, I think, of also some good play on our behalf and straight kicking. Because in the end,
9 goals won, was it, at half time?
I think so. I think so. Now in the end, they ended up with 47.8% more scoring opportunities than us,
right?
Roughly. Yeah. But anyway, at half time we took our chances.
Yeah, they were fantastic. That first half was a Brad Scott masterclass.
Now hang on, before you use the word masterclass.
Yeah. What?
just take it easy.
Oh, okay.
I think,
What, the word masterclass?
Yeah,
The fact that I joined it with Brad Scott.
Yes, don't throw it around too easily.
Okay. Well, look, they were pretty good. I mean, let's be honest. Essendon played its best half of footy in the first half. I think it was their highest lead over Sydney for like 10 years. Someone correct me on this, but it's since 1998. We were in front by a certain margin at half-time over Sydney. I can't remember, but whoever was watching the television would have seen that. I noticed that on the replay as soon as I got home from the game.
Right.
But, we were fantastic. And for a while, I was literally scratching my head going, honey, what's going on out there? This is just too easy. We were just owning the football. There was always 4 Essendon players and an umpire wherever the ball landed. And the Essendon guys and the umpire did incredibly well to, really put a stamp on the game.
We did get some 50s there,
we did. I think we ended up with 7.
It's not like us to get the rub of the green that much.
Oh, but didn't they try to even that out in the third quarter?
They always come out because the guy is talking in their ear.
Yeah.
Okay.
I noticed.
Did they clarify that during the
10
week?
minutes into the third quarter, they had 6 free kicks to 1. So in the end, I think we ended up with 21 frees to 19. But anyway, the story of the 50s, the 3 goals, the first 3 goals. The 3 goals we kicked in that first quarter were all the result of a 50-metre penalty. Your thoughts, please, smoking.
Yeah, I loved it. Why not? Bring them on.
They help, don't they?
Yeah, they really do. They really do.
I wonder if it's in the game plan, maybe, get more 50s.
Yeah. I think it was it one on Nell Hawley, I think? Was that one of them?
And 2 on Paddy.
It was Warner.
Yep.
It was good to see that.
Yeah, someone's got to wipe the smug look off that guy's face. But anyway, we did in the end.
Yes.
Yeah, but Al Hawley got one. I think Caddy had 2, right?
Yeah, I think so.
He did.
2?
Yeah, he kicked 2 goals in the first. So
yes.
one of them was I think he was already like only 10 or 15 metres out and had the ball knocked out of his hands and took him to the goal line.
That's right.
So he would have probably kicked that anyway.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it was an extraordinary lack of discipline from the Sydney Swans, really, all through the first half. A lack of composure, a lack of discipline, giving up easy free kicks, giving up so many 50-metre penalties.
So undisciplined.
Right.
They're normally just a drilled military unit. You know what I mean?
Well, they were under John Longmire.
Yes.
Are they that under Dean Cox? I think he could feel a little stiff.
By the umpiring?
Well, yeah.
Just all round?
All around. I mean, some of those frees were a little soft, to be honest, and we were definitely the beneficiary of it. But we took advantage of it. And in that first half, our defence was imperious.
So I think we do need to give some credit to Brad Scott because a few weeks ago it was looking ugly. Okay, we had more
than a few weeks ago
more holes than Swiss cheese, right? But now it's tightened right up, and certainly, I mean, losing Ridley was a big concern going into this game. But boy, Zach Reid, his trajectory from that rough first and second game is just off the charts.
If he was a stock, what would he be? I know you play.
Good question.
Is he a little Bitcoin-esque, or is that unfair?
Yeah. Well, yes, but I'm thinking something even quicker. I'll come back to you.
Yeah, have a think about that.
All right,
because his stocks are definitely rising,
yes,
and
definitely.
For the game he was sensational. He had 27 disposals, 14 marks, which was an equal high.
Yeah.
And Jackson Pryor was the other player to have 14 marks. He's really improved a lot too since that terrible first game he had where everyone was calling for his head. Yeah. I think Pryor has really, nailed that spot in the back line down. He owns that now. So, but then even Ben Mackay, who's been much maligned in the last month of football, he was standing up and taking some very good intercept marks. And I think for that first quarter, it was a record number of intercept marks in a game ever played. So the ball was being turned over regularly by both sides, but we were able to make the most of it as opposed to the Swans. But defensively, McGrath stood out for me, smoking.
Yes.
He was fantastic. And we've been big fans of Vandy McGrath and continue to blow smoke up his backside. But this time he had white smoke rather than black smoke.
Only on those occasions when we're not big fans. But
well, I suppose it's pretty often. But he was great though. How many metres did he?
Only roughly 746.
Roughly. That is insane for a guy who can barely kick the ball over a jam tin.
Yeah, no, he was moving. He was moving really well.
Yeah.
And it was good to see.
And you know, and let's not forget. I think Redmond also had a fantastic game as well.
Again, we were
535 metres gain for him.
We were questioning a few weeks ago what's happened since he'd signed the contract, but boy, he's been coming back. Kicked one of his signature goals as well on the run. Beautiful.
2 steps. He took 2 steps.
Beautiful to see.
And kicked that 53 metres out. He was fantastic. So I think defensively, again, I don't think they kicked 60 odd points, was it?
Yes.
So something like that. So I think, you know, the great thing that, putting aside the failure to really put our foot on their throats in the second half, let's just go back to the fact that this is, I think, the 3rd or 4th game in the last few weeks where the opposition hasn't kicked more than 65 points against us.
Yes.
And so we've got to be pleased with that. You know, defensively, after a very shaky start at the beginning of the season, where you know, you had the Hawks kicked 111 points against us, and then of course in the Adelaide game they kicked 160.
Yeah,
we've been pretty good. In fact, I think if my memory serves me correct, we've had the 4th best defence in terms of points against since those games. So, you know, defensively that's coming along, but unfortunately, well, let's hope not tragically, because we don't know the extent of his injury, but young Lewis Hayes, who I thought looked pretty good, came off the ground with what appears to be a knee injury.
Yeah, that's a concern. Surely not another ACL. There's no room left in our rehab room down there at the hangar. It's standing room only already. They'd have to extend it.
Yeah.
They'd have to put a second level on it. But let's hope.
Yeah,
I saw him sort of standing up in the dressing room at the end. But you're telling me that you can still stand up when you've done
players,
the ACL.
you can actually you know, not even have it operated. Athletes have to have it operated on, but us average people, we can live with an ACL. It's not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's hope, because that's just so tragic in his first game. You know, he's waited so long to get a chance to play in the big league.
It's
nasty.
To
come off like that.
Life can be nasty sometimes. So, as a debutant, I think he looked pretty good.
Right.
Pretty comfortable.
He did. I mean, he ended up with 16 disposals. He had 3 marks. Put on some really good pressure, laid some pretty good tackles, and for a first game looked comfortable at that level. So look, fingers crossed for Lewis. Let's hope it's nothing too bad, and we'll see him back.
Shall we talk about the other debutant now?
Yeah, just before, I just want to say though, in the event that Lewis Hayes doesn't come back, you know, we're not going to see Ridley for 8 weeks. It looks like Jason Laverde would be the man. But I have to say, I watched the VFL side play. They also had a very good win over the Sydney Swans VFL team.
Right.
And Laverde was actually excellent in that game. He looks ready to step up if required.
Right, okay. Well, that's good to know, because I would have thought that looks like how it's going to play out.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yes. Okay. So Archer Day Wicks also having his first game, kicked a very impressive goal. I think it was in that second quarter.
Yeah.
Real pressure goal there. Just sort of took ownership of the ball. Snapped truly. Great way to have your first game.
Yeah, weaved through 2 or 3 Sydney players. And, you know, that's always the thing you look for. Okay, so Archer didn't have a great game. He had about 6 disposals. Kicked a goal, which is fantastic in his first game.
Yep.
But you got to look at little things. You know, it's how a player moves can often be a window into their future. And the way he moved through that tight, congested pack, you know, the ability to just weave through says he's got some natural instincts that are really important in the game of football. So I hope he stays in the team for next week. Give him a second go, see what injury issues are like, but definitely looks like a promising young player.
Yep. Okay. Yep. I would agree with that. Shall we go to the stalwarts? You had Martin back with a massive number of possessions. I think it was 38 disposals.
Yeah, well, look, Martin is kind of a barometer, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know, when he's really firing, Essendon is firing. And in that first half, we were just owning the football. I think we had more than 100 more uncontested possessions for the game.
Yeah.
And if we what Sydney did in the second half to get back into the game was to stop us owning the football, to put pressure on and to prevent us from playing that short passing game, which we were doing so effectively. But Martin, brilliant game from him. I'm sure he will probably get the 3 votes.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about the game before against North Melbourne, how Merritt practically carried us over the line, and he did. He didn't have to do that against the Swans. Still played well. 2 valuable goals, obviously, all over the ground once again. But I think he was tagged, kept to 19 disposals, and it was great to see other players step up.
It's great that Merritt can have a quiet game but still impact the scoreboard.
Yeah.
So, 2 goals from Zach, fantastic, given the margin at the end of the game, very important goals. But he was quiet by his standards.
Yeah.
But, I think we had some really excellent...
but you want to see that. That's what you want to see.
You do. You can't rely on one player to do it all. And I think, I thought our midfield was pretty solid. We've mentioned Martin, but I think Setterfield was also very good in close. 28
disposals.
Yeah, and laid a hell of a lot of tackles. 8 tackles and 9 contested possessions for Setterfield. So he's just the quiet, silent achiever, quiet achiever every week.
Yeah.
And Durham was, I thought, also fantastic in the middle of the ground. He kept his opponent very quiet, but still managed to get a hell of a lot of the ball. He had 11 contested possessions, 8 tackles, and took an absolute screamer, which unfortunately he couldn't finish off with a goal, but it was a fantastic mark.
Doesn't matter, because he then kicked a goal where, again, like the Archer Day, Wicks, Durham has a bit more experience. I don't know how he got this ball surrounded by players. Again, just took ownership and kicked a beautiful goal. Bull Durham, that's all you got to say.
Yeah.
That's all you got to say.
So, those guys I thought all did pretty well. And in the forward line, Caddy was the standout for me. He had a fantastic game. I think it was his best game for Essendon, honestly. He kicked 3 goals, which is his equal best. But he was presenting himself all over the ground.
Yeah.
And interestingly, for a guy that's playing full forward, he had 6 inside 50s. So he's getting the ball up on the wing outside that forward 50 arc, and he's pumping it in there. So he's playing all over the ground, and he's got a fantastic tank for a big guy, for a young guy.
Yeah.
Every reason to be very excited about where he's going in his career.
He's percolating beautifully. I mean, still has some blood rushes. We saw one, but it doesn't matter. He's contributing around the ground. So was Peter Wright, by the way. He took a lot of clutch, important marks.
Yeah. And tackles. He crunched some guy in a tackle. Peter Wright's become more physical, hasn't he? Yeah,
very much so, and exerting pressure around the ground. And so, don't know what the others, anyone else that you want to cover.
Only one other, which is Saad Al-Hawley. Not Al-Huli, Al-Hawley. I thought,
I didn't know you speak Muslim.
Yeah, right. Well, he had a great game. He had 21 disposals, kicked a goal, the beneficiary of one of those 50-metre penalties. But again, like all of his teammates, went a little quieter in the second half. But in the first half, he was a force to be reckoned with off the wing. And a lot of penetration on his kicks. Moves the ball quickly. We've got a really good player in Saad. I'm looking forward to seeing him continue to be in the side. I think he's got to hold his place in the team after tonight's performance.
Yeah. So, like, in terms of the whole side, whether it was happened by providence or by design, it seemed to be a nicely balanced side that we went in with. Everyone playing their role. There was something about it, and I mean, you've been saying that maybe the coach would be forced into making those changes, but whether it was or not, it was. It seemed to work. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Yes, only scraped over the line yet again. Still, it's we're in the 8. Don't laugh. May not be there.
Finals bound.
Might not be there by the end of the round. Nevertheless, it wasn't looking good a few weeks ago.
No.
So
look, the test is to come for us. I mean, let's be honest. I don't think we've got a real big scalp yet this year.
No.
Sydney were below us on the ladder. But
they were the favourites.
They were.
Going into
They
the
were.
game, though.
It was a good result. I mean, we do have to talk about the fade outs. Is that a fitness issue? Is it a tactical issue? Is it just an inexperience issue?
Fortunately, as supporters, we're all hardened to expect
We are.
that.
I
No
mean,
one
we
got
all knew it.
comfortable.
We all
No one
knew
was
it.
smoking cigars
No.
at half-time with that 39-point lead.
No.
We were just like, maybe that might be enough to get us over the line.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. It might just be that extra goal to get us there. And in the end, it kind of just was.
Right.
But, I don't think we scored a goal in that last quarter.
Nope.
But
2 goals in the second half.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boy. But played with some maturity in those last few minutes to sort of manage the situation.
Look,
Whereas previously,
that's true.
we wouldn't do that.
No, that's true.
That's something. We need to acknowledge that.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you 100%. The problem is, as an inexperienced young side, and we mentioned at the beginning of the show, 15 players in that team tonight had less than 100 games.
Yeah.
You can't expect them to just be doing what they did in the first half for 4 quarters, week in, week out. That's the Collingwoods of this world. Teams which have got that level of experience and they just know how to do that. We were becoming very reactionary in that second half. As soon as Sydney got on top, and they were always going to come out and do that, the momentum swings, the pendulum swings, and what happens is the team that was on top becomes reactionary, whereas in the first half we were dictating terms. When you have to respond to what the other side does, if you can't break back into that, control quickly, it becomes extremely hard. And for a young side, they were really struggling. They could not win a 50-50 contest in the sort of third and fourth quarters. It was painful to watch. But every time the ball hit the ground, a Sydney player was able to get the ball, clear it out, and off they went. We were very fortunate in the end that their kicking was inaccurate and perhaps saved our necks at the end of the day.
I think definitely a factor. They kicked 8 goals, 15. So they've got stuff to review in Monday morning's review. They've got some stuff to analyse. But also, old man Goldstein did okay against
for the first half. Yeah. I mean, he was quiet.
Ran out
in
of
the
gas
second
again,
half.
you're saying?
Probably. I watched I mentioned I watched the VFL side play today. And, Vigo Vicentini was very impressive in that game again.
Oh, let's hope.
No, he really looked
that's enough. You've said enough.
I want to say, look, this year, people have often criticised Brad Scott because he tends to not want to play younger players. He doesn't like to bring kids in.
Who are those people that have criticised
A lot of
him?
people.
Yeah.
And
do you know any of them?
Yes, personally, I know about one.
Okay.
And no, but this year we've debuted 5 players, right? Already.
Yes.
Well, round 8 or round 9, whatever it is. We've debuted 5 players. And that's not counting Jackson Pryor, who also played his first game for Essendon, but was obviously had experience previously.
Yes.
But 5 actual first gamers this year. And I reckon, conservatively, we're going to have at least 3 more before the season's over.
Yeah, wow.
Vicentini will definitely have a run this year, for sure.
Right.
I mean, Goldstein can't go the whole season without that support.
Right.
But I thought also very impressive was young, I can never say his name, Garine. In the forward line for Essendon's VFL team. I think he kicked 3 or 4 goals.
I can't help you.
He was really good. And Angus Clark, who's just come back from a bit of a long-term injury, really looks fantastic. He's going to be a player. He was picked up, I think we picked him up about number 35 in the draft last year.
Who's the other one? Zach
Johnson, Zach Johnson. He's also, I think he might have been an emergency tonight. So there's a lot of young kids in the VFL side, and frankly, we're going to have to need them because we're getting so many injuries.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot to like about the result, despite the fade out.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. He was an emergency.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes, that's right. But fade out nonetheless. Were you surprised that Shield came on as a sub?
I'm not surprised. I mean, he didn't play. He was managed last week, so he had a week off.
Right, okay.
I'm not sure about that. I don't think he had any impact coming on as a sub.
No.
But, look, Dylan Shield has had some pretty good patches this year.
Yeah.
He was particularly good against the Eagles. We'll see. I don't know how that's going to play out. Is he the future? Would we be better off having a Zach Johnson come on? I mean, it's hard to debut 3 guys in one match, but perhaps, in the next few weeks we will see a couple of these younger guys coming in. But I thought Shield was ineffective.
Yeah, okay. So we go on to face the Dogs in our next game at Marvel yet again.
Yeah.
The Dogs have been in some pretty decent form. They're playing Gold Coast as we speak. I might sneak
this is live TV.
There we go. Yeah, it seems pretty close at the moment. Gold Coast, of course, got...
spoiler alert.
About what do we...
someone might want to watch the replay or, tomorrow sit
But then
down.
by the time we get this out,
I'll watch the Gold Coast game, then I'm going to watch... No, actually, I'll watch absolutely Essendon first and then sit back and enjoy the... Oh.
Do you know the percentage of people that would be going through that thought process?
You don't think so? Well,
anyway,
people's viewing habits are very much, this is a cutthroat industry that we're in at the moment. To try and capture the market share. There's a lot of activity in the Essendon content creating world at the moment.
There is. Everyone's up and about, which is good to see.
You'd think this was like the new gold rush, but let me tell you don't make any money out of this.
I think everyone realises that. But
the Bulldogs.
It's good to have a lot of different voices. Yes, so the Bulldogs. So, they're playing pretty well. Don't know if we've got a third victory in a row at Marvel Stadium in us, but it's going to be a great test.
I'm just watching the kids. That's it for me.
Is that all you're doing?
I'm just watching the kids.
Hey? You're not looking at the scoreboard?
If we have
like Brad Scott.
Yeah, exactly. The competition's on a knife's edge.
It is.
So, now, Brad, because we've actually raced into the studio, we haven't seen his press conference.
No, we haven't.
But I would imagine there's a lot of knife's edge comments.
I imagine it would be.
Right.
Always knew they were going to come. They're a professional outfit.
They are.
Yep.
This competition is, anyone can win it on the day.
Yes, on the day. We take nothing for granted. All that sort of stuff. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
Well, look, I don't think I could add much more to the conversation other than to say, yep, everyone's going to be moaning about the second half fade out. Yes. I'm actually celebrating it. I think it was a great win against a very, very qualified opponent.
Yes.
And we have had a bucket load of injuries, a lot to be excited about.
We have had a truckload of injuries, but we have won 5 out of the last 6. Yeah. Let's take that. We are in the 8, however, temporarily. Let's take that also.
And good news also today was Melbourne lost. So whilst we're climbing the ladder and saying goodbye to a high draft pick, Melbourne is doing us a favour and we may still get that high draft pick courtesy of their inept performances.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. Jeez, it was just a double header for us today.
Was.
All right. That is it.
See ya.
Stick a fork in us. We are done.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.